Harvest Moon 64. It's a good game on the second playthrough when you know more about it, like to ship indoors so there's no loading screen after exiting the rucksack. The second time, my only big complaint about the game is it doesn't detect your A button press sometimes when you're outside. And if it's past closing time of the store, or you just can't find a character, you can't give her a gift that day. Thanks so much to the person who put the farm statistics screen ROM hack out there. All I had to do was play it, no patching required. I was really excited to play this because this is another one of the Harvest Moon games that lets you woo bachelorettes, and marry's an option. Somehow they managed to fuck up the television. Whenever you select a channel, it traps you in that channel until after the text from the channel has completely been read. You better just keep it on the weather channel, because it'll actually remain on the last channel you selected after that day. And the C left channel is just static. That's dumb. Also, I encountered a glitch where the educational channel just said a few letters in 2 text boxes. I think on the same day, I got it to work right after that. The text scrolling speed is very slow. You can't make it go faster. And even with fast forward, you can barely speed it up. And there's a lot of text. So that's not a nitpick, it's one of the most common and frustrating problems with the game. It means it's always annoying hearing Bob's dialogue at 5 PM telling me that he's picking stuff up. The beginning was long and boring enough with me having to name my farm. What is the point of that? That's a waste of seconds. Not being able to pick the exact day of your birth defeats the purpose of getting to pick your birthday. I just realized why I think the spring music sucks. It's way too repetitive. The first 2 times that a part of the music plays, it's the same boring slow melody twice, and that's the same instrument with the overly long notes going to play a slightly different melody that still has a long note at the end. And the fourth part also has a long note at the end and is even shorter, being higher pitched for the first 2 notes. Right away I hated that there's no run button. So there's nowhere to go faster, when you don't really walk fast enough. And there's no way to just hold the run button and move ahead automatically, so I get impatient with the walking speed in this game easily. I took until now to mention it, because if you speed up the game on an emulator, it's not that big of a problem. You have to use a ROM hack just to be able to see the farm statistics screen, because apparently they took it out of the North American version. So why can't I just access that anywhere? The diary is the only saving method. And the calendar doesn't fucking mark down any of the festivals at all. It expects you to want to mark down stuff yourself for no reason at all. I don't know how they managed to screw a calendar up, but they did it. My favorite thing about this game right away is that it has the Friends of Mineral characters. Or rather, their first iterations. And it was odd seeing them in different roles, with Karen being the bitchy, rebellious daughter of Gauntz. And it reminds me of something I read that was defending the Friends of Mineral remake redesigns. The characters' clothes were changed so that they'd actually fit their new jobs. They were writing that Anne of Friends of Mineral didn't look like a waitress when she retained the overalls for 64. They had a point, it makes a lot more sense that she has overalls when she's a farmhand. But in Friends of Mineral they explained that she was a tomboy. And in this game, Basil is Lillian's husband instead of being Mary's father. And that makes sense because a botanist and someone selling seeds would have common interests in plants. In Friends of Mineral Basil was married to Anna, who was bored of his interests and hated flowers because of him. So that was a bad couple. I love that Mary is in the game, even if they pointlessly name her Maria, when that name is usually already taken by the priestess with blue hair. Because the characters have character portraits in this game, she looks just like the Mary I know in the portrait anyways. It's great to see their actual emotions. Then the mayor took forever showing me around town. But it didn't stop me from getting lost in the level design later and struggling to find the buildings I wanted to in the first spring. Being told something once won't guarantee that you'll memorize everything you're told. It looks so primitive that you walk towards a black void at the edge of the screen in order to do a screen transition. There's a square at the edge of the screen with black on the other side. So it makes the world map feel disconnected rather than you naturally go into the other area from the path before, like in every other game. It makes it harder to memorize how everything connects to each other. It's not like the screen scrolls. It's more that the screen fades and suddenly you're at the entrance of the next area, which feels more arbitrary and disorienting. And there's no map in this game at all. This is all nothing new, but with more areas to remember, these are bigger issues. I go through town and I always miss how much time it saved in Harvest Moon 1 JBC to just have a map screen and teleport to shops with no passage of time when you go to town. There's very noticeable pop-in when I walk through the town and the buildings clearly load up and pop in as I walk towards them. It also happens whenever I go to the northernmost place, north of the fishing pond. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm playing it on a ROM hack on BizHawk instead, but it's just so weird that it makes the N64 game look like the most technologically inferior of them all. There's tons of slowdown in this game everywhere, and it actually really discourages me from going to the ranch or the place where I saw Kai. Parts of the town that are especially slow. It's baffling that none of the bookshelves in the game's library tell you anything about the game. You can't read them, it's literally just there to talk to Maria. You'd think they'd tell you that you can charge up tools. This is the first game where you can charge up tools, which means it takes longer to use their special skills. At least it means you aren't forced to use up a bunch of stamina to dig up one little tile. Instead of using the educational channel, wouldn't it be much more convenient for someone to learn all the knowledge in the game by going to the bookshelves and finding it all at once, instead of having to tune in every day to get a little at a time? At least you don't have to wait until 10 o'clock for the library to open. Rick has something on its menu called the Room Organizer, and the only hints that it's actually a shelf are that the letter you got Ian to go told you that he would sell a shelf for the same price. And that text box when you try to stand in front of a paper on the desk and buy it says, "Don't carry around items you don't need." That cabinet, it doesn't stack items. And like the freezer, it's not like you can hold 4 seasons worth of stuff in it. Not like you'd be able to harvest all those cabbages before they went bad the next day. At least there is a fridge though, that's the first time. Like the cabinet, you can't stack items in it. But it's actually nice to not have the game take forever to fully complete because of hoarding. I've got tons of cabbages stocked up, but your freezer gets full ridiculously fast. I was also disappointed by how little flowers I could hold in the cabinet. It's also stupid that Rick's shop is closed on 3 days of the week. Jeff doesn't give you a cake card that lets you get points to enter a raffle at the end of the year until you buy a cake from him, not from the menu. The menu is a trap. You can buy 10 cakes from the menu, but without the cake card, it's a waste of money. Why can't I enter the raffle all year instead of having to wait so long for it that I might end up forgetting to enter it? This is the kind of thing that makes me think this game sucks sometimes. Oh, look at that. People ask how to draw a raffle on forums on the internet too. It's not just me. And apparently there's a raffle in the flower shop too. But simply talking to Lillian doesn't let me enter it. Unless it's the end of the year for some reason. I don't know why anyone would defend having a completely random chance of winning stuff from a raffle. Imagine how tedious it would be having to go through an entire year again hoping you get the raffle prizes. Because you want to get everything. That's not rewarding your skill. At least I can press a button over the cake card in my essential items pocket and always know how many cake points I have. It goes without saying that's awesome that there is an essential items pocket. It's also good that you can order water for free here. It's a way to max out your tool experience without raising fatigue points by doing it at the bar. When you order a cake from the counter instead of the menu, your character holds the cake and can walk around with it. Cakes are a huge waste of money, because you can just order enough water and get the same amount of stamina that you would from eating a cake for free. It's not like cakes raise that much affection that they're worth that much money. I always love that you buy seeds and stuff by actually walking up to where they physically are in the shelves and pressing A in front of them. It feels way more immersive than just going through a list and buying stuff, which is more video gamey and takes longer when you have to do a lot of scrolling. I saw a list of vegetables in the shop, and all it did was tell me the shipping price of each crop. and I asked Lillian about the vegetables, and all she did was tell me their seed price, and the obvious that they grow in the only season they're sold in. I was like, you idiot! Why would you program her to only tell you the same thing the store already told you? I really hate that the seed shop makes no effort whatsoever to tell you how many days each crop takes to grow. Trial and error game design is something modern game programmers are taught to avoid nowadays, because it is bad game design. I was bewildered that Lillian was only letting me buy 20 seeds of each type, when you can buy 99 of each type of fodder. It's not like the seeds don't show up anymore in the shop as long as you have 20 of them, which would tell you. Why is she being a control freak all of a sudden? And you don't know how many of each seed you have unless you literally go check directly. You shouldn't need to press an arbitrary button, Z, when highlighting a tool to see its description. I kept pressing the shoulder buttons on the inventory screen and they didn't scroll to another screen. This game calls the bag belongings, even though your tools are your belongings as well. You have to go into the menu every single time you want to switch tools. When I think about it, that's actually a good thing, in the sense that time doesn't go by when you're in a menu. The problem is there's a bit of a load time every time you go into the menu. So if you're not indoors, tool switching is tedious. Also, there's no memo on the screen at all times telling you what time and day it is, so you lose track of time easily. It took me days to even register that the old-fashioned clock on the inventory screen was this game's pitiful excuse for a way to display the time, because I wasn't used to the idea of it. The clock doesn't show you actual numbers. You have to rely on your old memory of when you used to tell time the old-fashioned way. Because it had been forever since I looked at a real clock, and I wasn't looking for a clock to see the time in a Harvest Moon game, I didn't notice it for a while. In the earlier games, you could bring up a memo without a loading screen first. Every time you leave the pause screen too, you also have to wait for a few seconds. Even with holding RT for speed up. At least you do have 8 slots in your rucksack right away, that you can actually put multiple items into. I was confused for a bit at seeing the 2 slots above all the other slots, and eventually realized that it was showing you the tool you had equipped and the item you were holding if you were holding an item. I like that I dug up a power berry just by using my hoe in the field. That's the only one I found by digging the first year. I had just 2 by the second year. It took me a while of going through my farm twice until I finally found the place I could refill my watering can. Because the tiny pond isn't very noticeable. It doesn't immediately pop out like the fishing pond. B is the tool button. You can move and use tools in 8 directions in this game. It is by far one of my biggest problems with the game. Not the fact that you can move that way. In fact, the level design takes advantage of it a lot. But the fact that you can use tools in 8 directions. All that does is cause me to use tools diagonally when I don't want to and waste stamina. The controls feel like an active struggle because they're too sensitive. I constantly have to be careful to just tap forwards when watering my seeds when they're just seeds. I turned the game's analog stick sensitivity down, and it barely made a difference. The first time I tried to water 3 squares at once, I accidentally aimed diagonally. Diagonal harvesting is nice. At least the field isn't too ridiculously huge like in other games. At least it's still smaller than it usually is. What's really unacceptable is the random slowdown in your farm itself. There are dropped frames, meaning that you have to mash the B button hoping that the game will register that you're using the damn watering can. Nothing you do will make it guaranteed to be used every time. This is the most memorable thing about the game. I'm just so baffled. This is supposed to be a 3D Harvest Moon game, and there's not even a HUD to tell you what all the buttons do, tell you if your bag is full, or tell you what tool you have equipped. So there's an extra bit of challenge because you have to memorize all that stuff. Maybe you don't want to be having to pay full attention to a game as repetitive as Harvest Moon. In the previous game, you could always know what you have equipped if you have the memo on. The only way this game tries to feel more advanced is stuff like the pointless isometric camera angle. I always hate how finicky the game is about letting it pick up stuff when foraging. You have to not only be really close to it, but also be standing in exactly the right position in front of it. I like that you can pick up bugs like a ladybug, though you sadly can't ship them. You also can't ship flowers. It's interesting that the harvest sprites speak in pig Latin at first. You can befriend the harvest sprites in the cave to get them to do your farm work. It's not like you can hire them whenever you want, because you don't have a timer, so you can't turn off the game and make it play itself. This game may have the sprites feed your animals, but only if it's on a hurricane day or a wedding where you can't do it. And they don't ship anything. And I'm pretty sure befriending the sprites enough is why my crops got watered on a festival day. Because it didn't happen before I befriended them that much. I also hate that you can go to them too early, although you have to be trying to do that. Why is the part of the cave with their bunk bed closed during a festival? They don't go to the festivals. Don't you just hate it when you accidentally throw a flower when you're trying to give it to the elf for a reward because he keeps moving and you can move and give stuff to people diagonally and he's such a small target? It took me until winter to find out you could mash A in front of the weird opening in the cave and go to a place with other elves. I mostly just focused on clearing my farm of rocks and trying to ship everything I saw in the fields and the earths in the mine. But I was really hampered by the fact that at first I didn't know I could put away items because the B and Y buttons didn't do the trick. And I had to look up the game's controls to find out finally that you even could put an item in your rucksack by pressing up on the camera stick. Needless to say, that sucks. It's unacceptable that you can't get out an item without going to the inventory first, instead of just having a button combination. It means that shipping is always the most painfully boring part of the day. It's a big deal when you have to deal with it daily. If you ship stuff with a shipping bin indoors, not only will time not move, but there's an instant load time when you leave the item menu because it only has to load up the barn. So ship everything indoors. Not being able to see the passage of time when you're shipping stuff makes it less likely that you'll think about time-saving measures. Shipping the barn and coop is annoying though because the bin is viewed from an isometric camera angle, and it's not very big either. So you have to approach it from a specific part of it to make sure that you don't potentially destroy the thing you're trying to ship, which happened to me twice when trying to press A in front of the coop door to enter it, because the door is so damn small. With most bins, they're square, so every single side of it is safe to ship with. But these bins have sharp corners because of the camera angle. I naturally assumed cabbages were the most profitable because they're the most expensive crop in the spring. The potatoes are the best crop in the spring, since cabbages grow too slow. But if you want to befriend Mary, you have to plant cabbages because it'll take forever otherwise, because she loves cabbages. At the start of the game, I did all my tool use at night because the daytime is when I was pressured to always be trying to forage or fish to ship stuff. And you're definitely going to be doing that if you're used to the first game, where that was what you were supposed to do. You can go ahead and put it in the box at night. Oh, thank goodness. The game really should have fucking told you that when Bob was going on about the fact that shipping works just like it always does. On my first playthrough, even by the first fall, I still didn't have a watering can that waters 9 crops at once. It took 2 years for me to get my golden axe the first time. Most people aren't going to know that you can repeatedly use your tools and fully upgrade them all early in the game, which is the most awesome tool upgrade system ever. It's still inferior that you even have to charge it up this time. And you can't see your tool experience bar increase as you use the tool. This is the first game to have days off at stores not be just weekends, which is harder to remember. The previous game didn't have stores have days off. Getting a fishing rod is easy. All you have to do is talk to the fisherman. At first I did nothing but try to cast the fishing rod, and then see my character immediately reel it back in, which confused me into thinking that the game was bugged because I wasn't playing it on the N64, because this was exactly how your character acts when you cast a rod in the wrong place. It turns out, after I finally read the fishing rod's description by pressing some button over in the inventory, that you release the tool button in order to reel in a fish, which after some thought, implicitly reveals that you have to be holding down the button at all times to keep the fishing rod in the water. Why? What were they thinking? It doesn't feel good on your finger to be constantly holding down the button on the controller. Fishing worked way better in the previous game. The fisherman tells you how the fishing rod controls, but I waited so long to fish, because fortune worked fine before, that I forgot what he said by the time I did fish. The real reason fishing was ruined is that it takes significantly longer to get a bite. So by the time you do, you probably aren't ready to react in time, and you're gonna lose it. It's more fun to get bite after bite after bite, even if that could involve a lot of cans. The timing is too precise on reeling them in, so it seems like most of the time I lose the bite. So they really mangled fishing in this game. This game gutted fishing. I'm so bored by it, I feel like my soul is dying. At least I caught multiple different models of fish, which even had different colors. It's nice that the fishing rod catches all fish sizes from the start. You know what the only way to get a power berry and reduce fatigue loss by half is? I had to look it up on the internet to find this out. You have to catch a large fish. I threw the brown fish into the lake in the northwest area, and nothing happened. Like, of course you're gonna think you could get a reward from throwing it in a lake that had someone go out of it. How are you supposed to know that a different lake could have a different result? I hate that the carpenters take 4 days to build stuff in this game, because you'll be counting on 3 days. So the first time I tried the playthrough for this recording, I waited too long to get the kitchen built, so I needed a code to get it on spring 30th. If you plant seeds on wet soil, the soil magically becomes dry, and you have to water it anyways. I mention it again because it's a major problem with the farming by making it take longer. So I hate that you have to water stuff in the rain after harvesting, especially since it drains your fatigue points. I hate that the game tricks you into watering the crops that need harvesting the first time, and then you harvest them and find out that, oh shit, you have to water them again anyways after you harvest them. What the fuck was that? How did they not catch that in the bug testing? There isn't much time to waste in this game. I looked at the time on my computer to time it, and it went from 1:56 to 1:59 before the time in the game reached dusk. It wouldn't be as frustrating though if you had less to forage. The only code I could find to slow down the timer gives you a message saying that it's not supported by BizHonk. It's cool that unlike in other games, moving while cutting a tree stump doesn't make the game lose track of how many times you hit it. It's weird and convenient that when a villager goes to your house, you can choose to ignore them after that and eventually they'll go away. It's annoying that the game changes the angle when you talk to someone who showed up at your door, because you have to change it back yourself and that wastes time. At some point, I was forced to stay in bed and lose a day because apparently, the game tediously forces a fatigue meter down my throat that punishes you for working as soon as 6 PM hits. I wasn't warned about that. And according to the wiki entry on fatigue, you only increase fatigue by using tools. So I could safely stay up all night foraging and be just fine, apparently. Cause that makes sense. So it's not really about the character being sleepy. I should have been told by the game itself that this was how the fatigue system worked. I wonder if I would have been told this vital information on playing the game right if I had chosen how to play. Knowing Harvest Moon, the tutorial would have simply told me no shit stuff like, this is how you use the tools. Yeah, that's a big waste of time. The only thing new it tells you is you can charge up tools. But almost nobody picked how to play, so it shouldn't be the only place you'll learn about that. There's no excuse at all for not showing you how much fatigue you have at all times in a game where the punishment for suddenly reaching too much fatigue is so steep. I was told that eating an herb before bed guarantees that you won't be stuck in bed all day. That's not always true, and it took multiple attempts to discover which C button even was the eating. I went to buy medicine and was pissed that I was told to come back with a bottle, when this is the only way to avoid getting sick if you don't have your watering can upgraded. What the hell were they thinking? This isn't Zelda. He could at least tell me where to get a bottle. What an asshole. The game doesn't tell you that eating stuff at the bakery doesn't keep you from being sick the next day. That literally only the herb will decrease your fatigue points. And only the medicinal one. Why does it take so many goddamn tries to go into the house's bathroom successfully? It's bad enough that Karen told me I was stupid when she came to visit me when it's the game that's stupid. But did that jerk have so little time in her busy schedule that she couldn't bother to feed my animals? Even a toddler could do that. If this was real life, she would have done that because it would have been blatantly obvious to her that you weren't going to do it. Or your character would have told her to. Why wouldn't she do that if she cared enough to visit? Also, if this was real life, there's no way that you would get sick and stay in bed all day from a cold. And from just being tired. How does anybody know to visit you when you're sick anyways? I've tried everything. I've tried going to bed after going to the hot spring, and using the bathroom, and using the toilet. Even with flower bath crystals. Why do you have to wait until winter for the hot spring to be unlocked? The fatigue system is inherently unfair. But yeah, it's a shame that the characters in this game like specific things. And like way less things than the Super Nintendo game. Which had everybody like eggs and crops and milk. This game forces you to look up a guide for every single person you want to befriend. Wasn't it tedious enough that you're somehow restricted to giving them one gift per day and so it takes forever? Which was also introduced in this game. For every character, the list of gift preferences is ridiculously small considering that some of them like things that are season specific. Every character has plenty of neutral gifts, but Mary's only loved gift is cabbages. You really have to go out of your way to find her on Mondays. You'd think she'd be in her house. It turns out she stands outside the church on Mondays. So you'd waste a tremendous amount of time looking for her. Speaking of church, it's disgusting that it's called that and the kid named Kent mentions God multiple times. This franchise is about the Harvest Goddess. I thought they got past that garbage in Harvest Moon Super Nintendo. Why did they localize it like that? I do love the way house expansion is handled in this game. Rather than you expanding the size of the one room your house has, you more realistically add new rooms. Like a kitchen. And you even get a fridge from it. It's more satisfying that way. And why does my dog appear outside after the carpenters are done something? I love how easy it is to get heart events. Just befriend her enough and it will happen naturally. And I like that Mary actually comes to my house because I befriended her enough. Twice to give me something to eat because I worked so hard. You can be waiting for a surprisingly long time and still not get a single heart event. It's because Mary looks for bugs in the summer instead of doing her job. Normally the heart events are easy to go to because of where they're located. So I see that this game is the first one to make heart events completely unintuitive god dang it's that are nevertheless mandatory for marriage. At least they're usually mandatory for marriage. But in this game, you don't have to see all of the heart events to marry someone. It's faster pacing. So it's only better in a gameplay sense. It's not better in the story sense because you don't learn enough about them. I just read on a forum that apparently showing Mary bugs does nothing to raise her affection, even though she clearly was programmed to respond positively to it. What the fuck? So I wasted all that goddamn time. Her gift preferences list on the Harvest Moon 64 wiki doesn't list flowers in it, and says insects. Someone has to correct that mistake, because who knows how many people have been the victim of this. I prefer having multiple different colors of hearts to having to count every heart in the heart meter to know how many hearts they have. Or really count how many hearts they don't have when it gets to a certain point. It's faster. The instructions on the treasure map are complete garbage. I'm in fall and still haven't dug it up. I had to read online that you are forced to befriend Rick first for him to fix a music box for you. That gives affection to any girl you give it to. I don't know how much milk I have to give him because there's no way to know how many points he has. It's so stupid that you are forced to befriend him for that. He's an engineer, wouldn't he happily fix it regardless? It's unacceptable that the tool shop has 3 days where it's not open. How lazy is Rick? The tool shop's closed when it rains, too. Whoever heard of that? When you talk to Rick later, he says sorry his shop's closed so often. But if he knows this is a problem and he's in charge, he should fix that problem. If the people who made this game knew it was a problem, something should have been done about it. This makes Rick needlessly annoying to befriend, as you're forced to look up a guide for the trillionth time to know where he is when he's not at the shop. And he isn't there until after 10 PM. In this game you have to go to Green Ranch to unlock the horse, rather than him being handed to you unavoidably. So it's very easy to not get him. I hate that the walnuts look like a little circular cactus. By like summer 8th, my watering can finally upgraded. You can tell when your watering can upgrades because it's not the same color anymore. Isn't it lazy that the watering can looks like the default one whenever you fill it up with water? Oh look, there's actually a forum question asking about why the person can't enter the library. That's how unintuitive this is. I'm not the only one who can't find Mary. Wait, what? There was a letter for me? This is why this game's mailbox is complete trash. Because the default camera angle every time you start your day doesn't show you the mailbox's slot, and no angle really does, you never know if you have mail, so you go an eternity without checking it. And even that angle doesn't show you if you have a letter. Apparently, she closes the library in the summer to hunt for bugs like she's Stu or something. I mean, that is better than her having no depth to her character. I'm glad Mary's in the place with the ladybug in the morning on summers. Because I already go there every day to get a gift for the sprite. But come on, how was I supposed to know that she was in the northmost part of that area hidden away from me? She's only there in the mornings. What goddess pond? It doesn't look that impressive. There's 2 ponds. I'd expect the goddess pond to be a bit bigger than that. What kind of a library closes in the summer? That's when people would have a lot of free time. If you look for a ladybug in the only place it is right after you wake up, you won't find it. I thought that mattered when I first played the game. She went to me at night and showed me fireflies in the goddess pond area. It was a nice effect that it was inexplicably pitch black when we got there until the fireflies lit everything up. The wiki says the fireflies event includes a picture. I don't remember that. And after this, I was forced to go to bed without getting a chance to go take a bath first. I can't believe they thought these problems were okay.